And we're in Palm Sunday, which traditionally is known as when Jesus came into Jerusalem with everyone cheering and claiming Hosanna and putting down palms and putting down their coats to keep him from being on the dirt, and just seeing him as the Messiah, being called in as the Messiah. And he knew that he was coming into something that was difficult. So what I'm inspired by is the Lenten book from Unity, which has been really good this year. I've loved it. It's 40 days, let go, let God. And this particular reading for Sunday, for Palm Sunday, is Jesus let go of the outcome. And he said that this was Jesus's triumphal entry into Jerusalem when his followers waved palm branches and shouted Hosanna, but Jesus knew his life was in danger. The Bible says he set his face for Jerusalem, knowing that it was the right place for him to be, letting go of whatever might happen. And I think this is so powerful when we really look at Jesus as our way shower, as our model for living truly from the divine space of humility and connection to something even greater still. Because he'd been telling people for a while in his teachings that he was going to be leaving. And it was hard for people to understand or believe or know what he was saying. I'm preparing the way for you. I will be here. I'm here for you, but I won't be here for you. And what I was studying as I was preparing for this talk, the thing that I think that really affected me and hit me so deeply this time, they're telling the story about how then he has the disciples, and he chooses which disciple is going to be the one to betray him. And Judas didn't have in his mind that he was going to betray him, but he said, the one that eats after I dip my bread in the oil and hand to the next person, that is who's going to betray me. And the Bible actually reads that so when he dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. And after he received the bread, Satan entered into him, and Jesus said to him, do quickly what you're going to do. So after he received the piece of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. And I looked up a lot around the metaphysical meaning of Satan, this concept of lightness and darkness. And in Unity, Satan and evil are really, and sin are not living from our heart, not living from love. And that there has to be somebody, some part of us that has the yin and the yang. We can't have the light without the dark. We can't have everything always be rosy and wonderful. Part of this really big piece that I got out of it this time is we know that it's going to be difficult. We don't want it to be difficult, but some part of us is always trying to not move into what could be hardship or could be pain or could be the complexity of being human, but we're always being offered this opportunity to step into our humanity. And so Jesus is offering this role that needed to be taken place. He knew on some level that this whole piece was going to be playing out, but he also was letting go of the outcome. He was offering the steps that we need to take in our life, but he wasn't holding intently to making anything happen. He was opening it up so that each person could play their role. And if we think about the people in our own lives that play the roles in our own lives, and the Judas in our own life, who is that person that we've been given the person that we blame? Who do we blame for what is wrong with us, or who was our nemesis, or who turned us in, right? So Judas is the one who's turning in, but he needed someone to turn in, so much so that he gave him that role. And then this concept of like Satan, this concept of opening up to knowing that you have to move through the darkness to get to the light, that we need that person in our life. We need that opening into moving into the next place. So then it says that after they had the dinner and Judas goes off, then he goes into the garden to pray. And what I was really thinking about in this situation that I wanted to bring, this was my main real heart that I felt this time, is we all go through very difficult phases in our life, whether it's the death of somebody that we love, whether it's an illness, whether it's the loss of a job, a loss of a friendship, whether it's a move, whether it's an upheaval, whether it's our own children who are struggling, whether it's friends that are struggling. Every single one of us is going to go through something that is really difficult. And even if you know that you're moving into something that's really difficult, the more that we resist it, the more we hold on to how we wish it wasn't going to be like that, the more suffering we have, which goes back to the Buddhist teachings that I've been sprinkling in our last times together. This concept that suffering is our attachment to how we want it to turn out. And so he knows that he's going into this time. He knows he's going to be dealing with this. And he goes into prayer and meditation. And he asks his disciples to stay awake with him, but they can't. And I thought this was really powerful because we're often asking others to be for us what we want them to give to us. We're asking them to show up for us in ways that they can't show up. We're asking them to be there for us. And very distinctly, they fall asleep twice. Like they can't handle it for him. It is not theirs to carry for him. He needs to deal with it himself. It isn't their awakening, it's his awakening. And so when we think about the people in your own life that maybe you have frustration with, maybe you have grievance with, maybe you have resentment for because they're not showing up for you in your time of need. And this is very present in this situation. He's been telling him all the time that this is going to be happening. And in this moment, when it's the hardest, they're asleep. And asleep doesn't necessarily mean like fast asleep, but asleep, spiritually asleep in that moment, not present. And then I think the thing that was really heart touching to me is Jesus came and he taught all these beautiful things, and he had all of this ability to heal, and he had connection to God in a way that we're all hoping that we can just touch a tiny bit. And yet his call in his time of real pain was, Father, I ask that if it's possible that you remove this cup from me. And I was really moved by that, because I think that when we're in the depths of our most pained moments in our life, what we're asking is, can I not have to go through this? Why does it have to be so hard? Why does my heart have to break so much? Why do I have to be sick? Why does my son have to struggle so much? Why does my parents have to go through what they're going through? Why can I bypass this pain? And even Jesus asked, can I have this cup past me? Can I not have to go through this? And then he says, but it's not my will, it's your will. And in metaphysics, what we're teaching isn't that the will is to make us small, isn't to be subservient, isn't that we are deserving of less because we're sinners. In unity and in New Thought, we're teaching that the will of spirit, the will of God, is for us to be even greater still, so much so that we believe that we could all be living from the Christ consciousness, that we could and are of God, filled with that spirit, so beautiful, so full, so able to heal, to be one with. But it doesn't mean that we are not going to go through the trials and tribulations. This was the teachings that I believe Jesus so beautifully and eloquently showed us, with strength, with spiritual power, to have all of those human emotions, to be afraid, to ask for help. And then come to the place to say, I trust and believe that this is what needs to happen in my life. And this is the part that for most of us, we don't like that part. I know I don't like that part. I don't, I have so much faith, and yet sometimes you just think, can't it be different? Really can't, does it have to be this hard? Do I have to feel this much? And my recent awareness for myself is how painful it is to feel grief and heartache and loss and anger, that it's almost like the feelings are more, that we're trying to stay away from the feelings almost more than the situation. We're trying to change the outcome because we don't want to feel the feelings. And what I recognize in this story is that Jesus is modeling all the feelings that we go through in our life, including being humble and washing the feet of his disciples. True humility. And he noticed that they were fighting. And instead of getting up on the table and saying, listen, guys, what are you doing? He said, he brought them down to earth. And he said, let me wash your feet. Let us be together. Let's connect with each other. So he came and he showed up in even a deeper level of humility than he had even then. Knowing that all the next things were going to come, but letting go of the outcome. How many, in a show of hands, how many people have been through something that when you first thought you were going through it, you thought you couldn't make it? There was no way that you would be able to survive. And what's so fascinating is when we lean into our spiritual self, when you lean into that part of you that is one with God, and you stay present in the moment instead of putting out so far in the attachment to the outcome, the trying to force an outcome that is going to keep whatever you think at bay, the pain at bay, and you just stay in it. You're given everything that you need at every moment. And even though the disciples weren't able to be present with Jesus in the garden, that they were asleep, as soon as the things were moving forward and he really was going through the hardship that he had to go through in his crucifixion, there was always energy and love present for him. And I love that it was Mary Magdalene that is one of his most heartfelt disciples. It wasn't the men, the energy of the men, the doers, the problem solvers. It was the heart that came from Mary Magdalene. That unwavering love that allowed him to have to go through what he did. And in unity, we don't believe that he did because we're bad. We believe that he did because we're amazing, to prove that we're more than. And to show us that no one and nothing can break you apart, that you can be killed and you will never be lost. You will never lose who you are. And releasing the outcome in our lives opens us up to this spiritual journey that we're on, that we can get lost in the 3D world, which is very real. It's incredibly real. And yet, when we open up to the knowing that we can release the outcome, and you look back on whatever that scenario was that you raised your hand for, that you said, I didn't think I was going to make it. I would also offer that probably all of us came out of that and said, I learned so much about myself. There was something on the other side that needed to happen for me to be able to get to where I am, to go through that. And I think of that with my alcoholism. I have no idea how I got so lost. And those years that felt like the world was just miserable, I mean, I had happy moments, and it wasn't, dark days every day, but inside my heart ached with a not enoughness, with a loneliness, with an emptiness. I felt like Jesus, who was asking for help, and there was nobody there to help me, because I didn't understand that it was me that needed to be the one to walk through it on my own, that I had to have my own crucifixion to be resurrection. I had to truly be at that place where I was willing to die, that kill that part of me, allow that part of me to die so that I could be resurrected into my new self. And I would have never understood that if I was holding on to an outcome. And so when we move out of the darkness where we're looking at everybody else to fix us, we're attaching so tightly to how it's supposed to be. And we move into the place where we say, I trust and believe that me, only me, and each of you, uniquely as your beautiful selves that you are, have a purpose, a true purpose, which doesn't mean it's on the outside. It means on the inside, the purpose to truly live from your heart, to live from your most Christ-centered, natured place, with the most forgiveness, with the most compassion, with the most humility, but never, never, never diminishing yourself. I think that's the thing about Jesus that I find the most inspirational, was he wasn't small, but he wasn't grandiose. He had this presence about him that spoke to people out of kindness and love, but he also was willing to come into Jerusalem and turn the tables and say, this, what you're doing doesn't resonate. It doesn't feel right. That isn't good. So it's never about not being in your strength and in your power. It's about how you're channeling it, where it's coming from, and letting go of the outcome, releasing the outcome. And the number one place that we need to practice this is in how we feel that we should be in other people's lives. And this is my never-ending practice that I have with myself, especially with my adult kids. How do you show up as your full self? And how do you let go of the outcome of what's happening for other people? And the more that we can do that, the more we actually come back to ourselves and our own spiritual journey and our own being in the garden and our own meditation and our own realization. We cannot have the cup pass, because this is our experience to have, whatever it is, whatever the difficulty is. Can we trust that we're being held? Can we believe that there's a Mary Magdalene in our life that is an energetic love and connection, and knowing that we are always resourced and held and given our every need? And so in the beginning of the story, he came into town with people shouting and cheering. And it's another example of how life's ups and downs, can we just hold space for all of it? It's a beautiful example of how quickly things change. And if we can stay detached and stay open and trust the process and stay in our faith, then we know that we'll be given every resource to make it through and actually grow and actually awaken, which is what we're here for anyway. So for Jesus to be another example of our modeling of our best selves, to let go of the outcome, even in the face of knowing what was going to come for him, is incredibly powerful. So I think I want to do an elongated meditation. So I just invite you to close your eyes and start by taking a deep breath with a full release. coming back to your breath. And just letting your body be in this present moment right here, right now. Noticing if there's any tension anywhere in your body and just breathing into that. And then your next breath, bring your energy into your heart space, just filling your heart with pure light. Pure love, pure awareness, pure knowing. And then bring to mind something that's in your life right now that is heavy on your heart. And continue to breathe into your heart and bring that into the space that is safe, that is resourced. Just holding this situation or person in this space and offering it love. And allowing your energy to truly release attachment. Releasing, if you can, the part that wants to control an outcome. And allowing yourself to feel whatever the feeling is that is behind that. Maybe it's sadness or loss. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's just the unknown, the discomfort of the unknown. Bringing your own Mary Magdalene energy to it, just this unconditional love and light. Bringing that strength of Jesus into it, that strength of being present with, strong and humble, kind. And opening to the place where you know that you will be given everything that you need to make it through this difficult time, to interact with this difficult person, releasing the outcome, to believe and trust that you will indeed move into another area from this, another way of being, and more open way of being, a gentle way of being. This too is part of the learning, part of the growth. And attending to your heart here, attending to the part of you that feels the feelings. Opening to the will of spirit and source that is fully resourced, that is divine nature, that is love and light. And see forgiveness. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Forgive ourselves, for we often do not know what we do. And in this space, just holding this person or situation or circumstance in a new light, changing the way you see it. that you can indeed let go. You don't have to hold on so tightly. Opening to the knowing that the universe is holding you. The will of spirit is love, learning, growth, and ultimately awakening. And taking a deep breath, allowing full release. Thank you, God, for this opportunity to come into our heart space, the sanctuary of our heart that is always available to us. We thank you for this opportunity to tune into this tender place within us in this Easter week. May we be filled with light. May we be inspired. May our Christ consciousness be awakened and reborn. For this and so much more, we are so grateful. And so it is. Namaste.